Hello everyone, GoldenNova here. Patron Week is upon us, and this time around, we're taking a look at one of the most infamous archetypes found in the Duel Terminal Lore. Premiering in the July 2010 side set Hidden Arsenal 2, Fabled are a series of monsters that sought to pick up where Dark Worlds left off. But this time around, they would iterate on that formula by triggering their effects off of any kind of discard, not just from being discarded by an effect, putting them somewhere on the discard theme spectrum between Dark World and Danger. In the story of the Duel Terminal, the Fabled manipulated the heroes of that story to their own ends, seeking to leave their isolated pocket dimension to rule over this new land. I won't get into too many details about them here, but if you're interested in more, check out my Living Lore of Duel Terminal series when you're done here, where I flesh out their history a lot more, as well as the rest of the archetypes involved in their story. For now, we're going to focus on mechanics, so grab your dossier of everyone's deepest, darkest secrets, see how you can twist them to your own designs, then see if there are any unwitting pawns you can mold into your personal army. It's time to realize the legend with Fabled. Today's episode is brought to you by my lovely patrons and the fine people over at Dragon Shield. If you want to protect your cards with the strongest scales on the market that even come with their own lore while supporting the channel, use my affiliate link in the description. So, what's the deal with Fabled? Well, they're a series of light attribute monsters split between two types. Fabled, which are all fiends, and the Fabled, which are all beasts. But since they're all still Fabled cards, it doesn't really get in the way of anything, and visually it's pretty clear which ones are beasts and which are fiends. I have no clue why the conniving, machinating Fabled demons have a group of tiny animals running around their realm, with tinier imps that look after those animals, but they're cute, so we'll keep them. As stated previously, they all either benefit from or enable discarding, producing a variety of effects, though the overall goal is to access powerful synchro monsters, as was the style at the time. Let's start off with all of our beast type, the Fabled monsters. First is the Fabled Cat Sith, a level 1 tuner monster with 800 attack and 600 defense, and when this card is discarded to the grave, select a face-up card on the field and destroy it. We're starting things off with some honest-to-goodness removal, which I certainly can't complain about. It's even mandatory, keeping in line with the idea that you can trigger this off of any kind of discard, adding some value where you otherwise wouldn't get it. The problem is that it doesn't specify your opponent's face-up cards, so if your opponent has no cards to target, it's gonna start taking a look at your own field. But I can't fault it for being on brand. Having a little cat just like this myself, I can tell you from experience, when it wants to cause trouble, it will, whether you like it or not. The Fabled Chawa is a level 1 monster with 200 attack and 100 defense, and during your main phase you can discard a Fabled monster to special summon this card from your hand. Not a bad effect, it enables a discard effect while getting itself onto the field, and being a tuner means it meshes well with any non-tuners you can field to access your extra deck. But make sure you're ready to use it for another card right when you summon it, because this card's stats aren't exactly going to stand up to a stiff breeze. Leave this on the field by itself, and it'll definitely be biting off more than it can chew Wawa. The Fabled Pegasus, boy I can't wait to hear the memes on this one, is a level 1 tuner monster with 100 attack and 1600 defense, and when this card is discarded to the grave, you can special summon it face down to your side of the field. And when this card is flipped face up, you can reveal a Fabled monster in your hand to send a Fabled monster from your deck to the grave. Flipping has reared its ugly head once again, I see. Though what gets me is that the flipping wasn't enough of a gatekeeping tool to use this effect. You also have to reveal a Fabled in hand just so they knew that you were on the archetype. But like, this is the theme we want to be discarding these monsters from, so why would we have any in the hand? And to top it all off, because it's an optional when effect, this one actually misses timing, so you have to discard this as the last part of an effect, not as cost. Really feels like there was a big disconnect when the theme was making this card, but to be fair, take a look at this little fella. Those are the eyes of a horse that's seeing into another dimension. It can't possibly concentrate on doing anything useful. Think the Fabled put something in the oats? Fabled Abonk is a level 2 tuner monster with 1000 attack and 600 defense, and if this card is in your grave, you can discard a Fabled monster, and if you do, special summon this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. Alright, now that's some legacy support. A discard enabler that you can use from the grave that gives you tuner access, or acts as repeatable rank 2 material. Ronin Raccoon Sandeyu is pretty powerful after all. I don't have any problem saying that this card is good. In fact, I'll do you one better. It's damn good. The Fabled Cerberell is a level 2 tuner monster with 1000 attack and 400 defense, and if this card is discarded to the grave, special summon it. Short Simple and to the point. This works on any discarding, doesn't lock you into anything in particular, so it's just a swell little tuner that sometimes finds its way into other discard-focused decks purely because it broadens their options. Not to mention its utility when used with Obedient Schooled, which works very well in level 2 beast decks, but oddly enough doesn't work at all in the Fabled deck, considering it locks out the fiend half of the archetype when you play it. But we don't need to rely on that spell to gain access to our goodest of doggos after all, we've already got him on hand. You know, since we have him on a tight leash. Fabled Nozuchi is a level 2 monster with 1200 attack and 800 defense, and during your main phase you can discard a Fabled monster and special summon this card from your hand. When this card is special summoned this way, you can special summon a level 2 or lower Fabled monster from your hand. So Nozuchi works like Chawa, but you get to bring along a little friend when you do it, which in and of itself can be Chawa. But you'll want to make sure that what you summon is either a tuner so you can get into another monster, or a level 2 so you can make one of those Xyz. Otherwise, this little snack is going to be left all to its lonesome, and will be pretty quickly shuffled off this mortal coil. The Fabled Ganashia is a level 3 monster with 1600 attack and 1000 defense, and when this card is discarded to the grave, special summon it. And if this card is special summoned this way, it gains 200 attack and is removed from play when it's removed from the field. Hey, 1800 is not a bad stat line for a free summon, and gives you more free material to work with. The banishing means you're not able to get this into rotation again, but as a level 3, it makes prime material for Leviair, which can summon back banished monsters, so that's kinda cool. But if you're not able to do that, you're gonna have to put up with the fact that your time with Ganashia is gonna be a bit truncated. The Fabled Cockator is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 1500 defense, and when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you can discard a Fabled monster to draw a card. This is pretty on brand, but I'm not particularly jazzed with it. These destroy by battle and get a bonus type effects are pretty cool, but really shouldn't require any kind of setup. Sure, having a discard outlet is pretty nice, but we already have cards that can handle that for us. And if you're low on cards and don't have one to pitch, this is effectively a vanilla. I feel like what this should have done is searched you a Fable, then made you discard a Fabled monster, because then the value would be guaranteed and you could filter into whatever you wanted. Not to mention that this would also keep Pegasus from missing timing. You do you, Cockator, but with an effect like that, don't go around asking why you're so low on the pecking order. The Fabled Ruby Ruda is a level 4 tuner monster with 1100 attack and 800 defense, and when this face-up card you control is selected as an attack target, you can discard a Fabled monster to negate the attack. That's not once per turn either, so as long as you have the cards to burn, you can keep this majestic creature safe. This also means you're going to be triggering a lot of Fabled monster effects if you do so. Also, it's pretty hard to complain about having access to a level 4 tuner. That would be pretty Garuda of you. Real quick, let's cover some of the Fabled Synchro monsters. The Fabled Kudabi is a level 4 Synchro monster with 2200 attack and 1100 defense, requiring a Fabled tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. If you have 0 cards in hand, this card can't be destroyed by battle or card effect, but if you have 3 or more, this card is destroyed during the end phase. All other times, it's basically a vanilla. Having an undefeatable monster when you're out of cards seems pretty cool, and I'm sure there were some people that stalled out with this long enough in the early days to help take a game or two, but today, this kind of protection just isn't gonna cut it. If the protection was on top of some other effect that helped you, that'd be one thing, but as it stands right now, this beast of burden is more of a burden than it's worth. The Fabled Unicorn is a level 4 Synchro monster with 2300 attack and 1000 defense, requiring a Fabled tuner monster and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. When you and your opponent have the same number of cards in hand, negate all cards and effects activated by your opponent, and if you do, destroy those cards. Yowza, now that's a floodgate if ever I've seen one. You might recognize this card's future incarnation as a member of the Nekroz archetype, and for good reason, as it refined the Synchro's effect to a razor's edge. It's still pretty good as its base form, though requires a lot of skill and tools to manipulate your hand size to keep it active. You'll need to keep in mind how even the act of playing cards changes a player's hand size, anticipating what your own hand size needs to be for this to be effective. And while fast drawing effects may not be easy to come by, having easy to deploy hand traps like DD Crow is a great way to lower your hand size on a whim so you can match your opponent's hand on the effect's resolution. And because of how splashable Cerberus is, you can actually splash this into a variety of decks that play low-level monsters. Nova said, looking at Melfi, "This card is a goldmine of opportunities for control players, and while it is a powerful floodgate, it requires a lot of skill to make work consistently, making this as rare and beautiful of a phenomenon as the mythical creature it's based on." Okay, we've finished going beast mode, let's shift into a fiend frenzy. Fabled Topi is a level 1 monster with 500 attack and 200 defense, and if your opponent has 2 or more cards in their hand than you do, you can reveal a fabled monster in your hand and tribute this face-up card, then target 2 spell or trap cards your opponent controls and destroy those targets. Yeah, Topi's a twin twister, great for smashing back row into oblivion, though it does imply that your opponent needs to have at least 3 cards in hand while you have that single fabled in hand. At least. But it's especially helpful when people are playing cards like Dimensional Fissure, cause you really need to have access to your graveyard for your effects to work. It's not a fantastic monster on its own, but a tech pick to definitely keep in mind. It's also, oddly enough, very strong against the Gen X matchup, not because of its effects or anything, but it did just steal Gen X Spare, and that remote control is gonna cause some major problems. Fabled Lore is a level 1 monster with 200 attack and 400 defense, and if this card is discarded to the grave, you special summon it, meaning this has the exact same effect as Fabled Cerberell. Well, Lure is when, where Cerberell is if, but they're both mandatory, so there's functionally no difference. The real schism here is that Lure's level and typing just aren't as generally useful as their Dogi contemporary. Decks that discard aren't in need of a random level 1 non-tuner, and if they do need something like that, they've probably already got it covered in engine, making this card anything but alluring. Fabled Raven is a level 2 tuner monster with 1300 attack and 1000 defense, and once per turn you can discard any number of cards, and if you do, this card gains 1 level and 400 attack for each discarded card until the end of the turn. This makes Raven not only an enabler for a whole host of discard effects all at once, it can also act as a multitude of levels to get you into just the right synchro monsters you need, or just punch your opponent with it. Even just 2 discards makes this a 2100 point monster, which will force your opponent to meet an end most unkind. Fabled Ultro is a level 2 tuner monster with 800 attack and 500 defense, and once per turn you can send a card from your hand to the grave to special summon a level 3 Fabled monster from your hand. Once again, very strange art, very at odds with the hell demons that are on display here. By pitching a card, you can potentially get some non-tuner monsters onto the board to make a level 5 synchro with, which is nice, but the fact that it has to be exactly 3 kinda bites, especially because out of our entire 30 plus card roster, only 3 of them are level 3. It's so frustrating. And no, it's not ironic that I'm complaining so virulently about this. When Ultro does it, it's a tantrum. When I do it, it's legitimate criticism. Fabled Ms. Toji is a level 2 tuner monster with 400 attack and 200 defense, and you can send this card from your hand to the grave to select a face-up Fabled monster you control, and the selected monster is treated as a tuner while face-up on the field. This helps expand our options, which is nice, though it does come at the cost of a -1 that doesn't do anything else. Though it does have the interesting quirk of letting you treat your synchros as tuners, potentially giving you access to some really bonkers synchro plays. She also brings a very Maria Calavera energy to the Fabled cast that I really appreciate. Fabled Cruss is a level 2 monster with 1000 attack and 800 defense, and when this card is discarded to the grave, you target one other level 4 or lower Fabled monster in your grave and special summon that target. Wow, yeah, that's just really good. Free, mandatory monster reborn that's not once per turn, getting us back our monsters so we can use them as synchro material for our big bosses. And speaking of bosses, this can also revive Fabled Unicorn if you lose it, which just screams value. Now, to be fair, I'd be sad too if I was stuck in a dimension full of gaslighting demons, but I'm proud of what they've accomplished here. Cruss is really crushing it. Fabled Diff is a level 3 monster with 1400 attack and 1700 defense, and when a Fabled monster is sent from the hand to your grave, you can tribute this card to select that monster and special summon it from the grave. So if you end up discarding a big Fabled you want to keep on board, or just one that you want to have on hand for synchro plays, you can just trade Diff for any of those and you're good to go. I also like that this is a valid revival target for Cruss, setting this up again to get more monsters back later. So whether you're fielding a game ender that'll rattle your opponent, or just getting another cog in the machine, it makes no difference to Diff. Fabled Kushano is a level 3 tuner with 1100 attack and 800 defense, and if this card is in your grave, you can discard a Fabled monster, except a copy of this card, to add this card to your hand. Now, this doesn't seem like much, but Kushano is one of, if not the, greatest cards in this deck when it comes to keeping things moving. It's another grave effect that discards your Fabled, but is also itself a Fabled, which can help cover your costs. At which point, it's usually back in your grave, so you can use it as an enabler again whenever you want. And being a level 3 tuner means you can just normal summon this to help make your synchros. And I mean, they're doing the anime glasses push thing, how could I not love them? Fabled Galabas is a level 4 monster with 1500 attack and 800 defense, and you can discard a card to grave, then target a monster your opponent controls with defense less than or equal to this card's attack and destroy that target. So anything with 15 or less defense, just gone. And that's not even factoring in any boosts that Galabas might get from other cards. And once again, it's not once per turn, leaving the door open to a potential sweep, while possibly enabling a whole bunch of discard triggers as well. In fact, I very much like the idea of you picking apart your opponent's field while you get value and your opponent is stuck flailing around. Fabled Arustos is a level 4 monster with 1500 attack and 200 defense, and while you have 2 or less cards in your hand, all face-up Fabled monsters you control gain 400 attack. Hey, that's a pretty nice pump effect, getting Arustos to 1900 itself and increasing the range of Galabas's effect. And this stacks if you have multiple, enabling you to go on the beatdown that much sooner. And it even lets you have 2 cards in your hand while you do it, ain't that a treat? Though it is funny that this will never see play in a bare bones Fabled deck. It's only around if you flesh things out. Fabled Ashen Veil is a level 4 monster with 1600 attack and 1200 defense, and once per battle, if this card battles during damage calculation as a quick effect, you can send a card from your hand to the grave, and this card gains 600 attack during that damage calculation only. So it doesn't last particularly long, but it does get this monster up to 2200, which ain't nothing. And because it doesn't have to send specifically Fabled cards, you can run this in a lot of decks that just want to vent their cards into the graveyard, though keep in mind, it says send, not discard, which makes it a pretty bad non-bow considering most of the effects we want to trigger specify that they have to be discarded. You know, I'm starting to think that this monster is actually a spy from some other archetype, which might explain the lack of synergy. In fact, that's what makes their disguise so thinly ashen-veiled. Fabled Grimrow is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 1000 defense, and if you control a face-up Fabled monster, you can send this card from your hand to the grave to add a Fabled monster from your deck to your hand, except a copy of this card. Oh my gosh, we have a search card, that is incredible. This is integral for setting up the right monsters in hand to trigger our discard effects. The only caveat is that we need to control another Fabled, but you know, 90% of our cards are Fabled monsters. We're gonna have at least one. So make proper use of this card, and you can definitely win several games in a grim row. Fabled Marketable is a level 4 monster with 1700 attack and 0 defense, and if this card is in your hand, you can discard up to 2 monsters, except this card, but including another Fabled monster, and if you do, special summon this card. If summoned this way, it gains 200 attack for each monster discarded. If this card is discarded to the grave, you can add a Fabled spell or trap card from your deck to your hand. So it either can special summon itself from hand, all while triggering any Fabled discard effects, or it can be discarded, in which case you get a free card, which honestly should be how all Fabled monsters work from now on, being able to act as both halves of the equation here, working well as the discarder and the discardee. Also, fun fact, we didn't actually get any Fabled spell or trap cards until the wave of support that Marketable came out in, which is really good because we came this close to having a Necroz of Clausula situation. Very funny from a lore perspective, not so much from a mechanical one. Fabled Solkius is a level 6 monster with 2200 attack and 2100 defense, and if this card is in your grave, you can send 2 cards, except copies of itself, from your hand to the grave to special summon this card from your grave. Once again, we have a generic cost, which helps this card be playable in a variety of decks, especially with the booming popularity of Bestials, giving a lot of decks access to rank 6 monsters. But just like Ashen Veil, we have another example of a card that sends cards from our hand to the grave, but it doesn't discard them. It's not quite as much of an issue if you use a card like Kushano to discard the card first, and then discard Kushano, which effectively has no effect anyway, but that still means you don't get to just pitch 2 cards out of your hand and then get Buku's Fabled value. But if what you send doesn't care about being discarded specifically, you can still get a whole basket of value. That being said, it is still high-level non-tuner material to help get you into your larger synchros. So despite it not lining up super well with our theme, I'd still call this the heart and Solkius of the deck. Fabled Dianaria is a level 8 monster with 2800 attack and 100 defense, and you can tribute summon this card in face-up attack position by tributing a Fabled monster. Once per turn, the first opponent's normal spell card effect to resolve becomes your opponent discards 1 card. So when I said that this deck was the next evolution of Dark Worlds, I was not kidding. They're even aping the spell replacement effect. And honestly, It's a pretty good one to have. There are a ton of normal spells that can warp the game around them, so having an out to one of them is pretty neat. I also like that this effect does not activate, meaning a careless opponent will use Dark Ruler No More as their first normal spell in a turn to turn off your board, and you'll already have an answer to it. You'll also have the answer to most battles because this fella is jacked! It's like they ripped a Baron of Hell right out of Doom. Alright, that's it for the main deck monsters. Now it's time for those synchros. Point of order, each one has the same synchro requirement, needing a Fabled Tuner and one or more non-tuner monsters as material. Fabled Ragin is a level 5 synchro monster with 2300 attack and 1800 defense, and when synchro summoned, you can draw until you have 2 cards in your hand. Yeah, if you manage to make this card while pulling off the Call-in special, it's a pot of greed. And once again, we are bereft of any once per turn clauses, so if you can empty your hand out and make another Ragin, that's another draw too. And what's even better is that this combos really well with TG Hyper Librarian. Because its draw is mandatory, it's already going at Chainlink 1, so you'll get the draw 2 from Ragin, then the Librarian draw. The name is right because when your opponent sees how much value you're getting out of it, they're the ones that are going to be Ragin. Fabled Wraith is a level 6 synchro monster with 2400 attack and 1600 defense, and if this card is special summoned, your opponent can discard a card to negate this effect. Otherwise, you can draw 2, then discard 1. If any number of monsters are sent from your opponent's hand to the grave, except during the damage step, you can target one of those monsters and special summon it to your field, but negate its effects. This is kind of a mixed bag. In general, most decks are geared towards putting cards in the grave so they can accrue value. So giving your opponent a chance to activate one of those effects for free is super risky. So it's best to only do this when your opponent has no hand to stop you with. However, if you expect those effects to come out of monsters and that those effects won't trigger immediately when being sent to the grave, Wraith can just go ahead and steal it out of their grave so your opponent can't use it on their turn. And in the case of those immediately triggering effects, if it happens on your opponent's turn, Wraith is in a great place to disrupt them. This is because when both players have trigger effects that go on the chain, the turn players will be added first. That means if this happens during your turn, Wraith will be at the bottom of the chain, meaning everything else will resolve before you get a chance to remove that monster from the grave. But if it's your opponent's turn, all their triggers will go on the chain, and then Wraith will come in to mess things up. Something that's particularly relevant nowadays, thanks to tier limits. There's a lot of technical know-how going on here, but when both players benefit from discard mechanics, you really want all the information you can get on your Wraith to the bottom. Fabled Valkyrus is a level 8 synchro monster with 2900 attack and 1700 defense, and once per turn you can discard a fiend monster to draw a card. That's a really funny condition considering a lot of our cards are beasts. Kinda feels like you should have been allowed to discard fabled monsters, but whatever. This can help dig you into more cards while enabling your Fiend Fabled's effects, as well as any off-theme fiends you have on hand. Just don't think about using Dark Worlds, cause this does discard as cost. Sorry Valk, but the Necros wore it better. Fabled Leviathan is a level 10 synchro monster with 3000 attack and 2000 defense, and when this card on the field is destroyed and sent to the grave, you can target up to 3 fabled monsters in your grave and add them to your hand. What I like here is that it doesn't care if it was synchro summoned for this effect to go off, so you can keep reviving this 3000 body, and it keeps floating into cards you can discard. But there's something funny about Leviathan being the big bad boss of all the Fabled, and their only effect happens when they get marked. Wonder if that's foreshadowing for anything. Alright, that's all of our monsters. Now it's time for our spell and trap card. Don't touch that dial. This segment isn't going to be very long. Stairway to a Fabled Realm is a field spell card, and when this card is activated, you can send a Fabled monster from your deck to the grave. Once per turn, it can target a Fabled monster in your grave, and on resolution, you discard 2 cards, and if you do, add that monster to your hand. And if your Fabled monster attacks an opponent's monster and you have less cards in your hand than your opponent, your monster gains attack equal to the difference, times 200, during that damage calculation only. Be careful though, this doesn't work on the defensive, so take advantage of it when you can. With this, you can send either Kushano or Sulcius right to the grave, or just anything you want to have in hand. Then just use the recycling effect to get it back, plus trigger some effects. The battle bonus isn't too powerful, though it is nice to have the boost just in case. What really matters is the amazing grave setup recursion tool that gives you everything you need to set up your plays, one step at a time. Fabled Treason is a normal trap card that targets a Fabled monster in your grave and a face-up card on the field. You discard a card, and if you do, special summon that monster from your grave, and if you do that, destroy that card on the field. Okay, this card is amazing because it's doing 3 things at once. 1, it gets you back any Fabled monster, fantastic. Oh, we can get back our big synchros to keep getting value out of them. 2, it removes a problem card from the field, excellent, we love some spot removal. 3, it discards, enabling any of our Fabled effects. This card does everything. It even discards as part of the effect, just in case you're splashing in some Dark Worlds. And honestly, this is just so on brand. One of their best cards being tied to backstabbing each other. 10 out of 10, beautiful performance. Please never stop being evil little gremlins. Alright, that's it for the cards. Now it's time for a little combo section. I can't get into the really super impactful ones in this video, otherwise it's going to double in length, because the most powerful lines involve drawing a million cards via Hyper Librarian and Ragin. And those combos require you to empty your hand before you even get the draws started. From that point on, any combo line is highly deterministic because you're counting on the top 3 cards of your deck to do the rest of the combo. My advice would be to find replay videos or anyone showing off specific Fabled combos, and then once you feel like you have a handle on it, go ahead and give it some practice runs on your favorite simulator. For now, I'd like to show you a smaller combo that can get you into something if you're in a pinch. For this, you're going to need Stairway to a Fabled Realm and Fabled Lure. Activate Stairway, sending Kushano from deck to grave. From there, activate Kushano, discarding Lure. This will trigger Lure's effect, special summoning it, and then you can normal summon the Kushano you just put into your hand. And bing bang boom, you've got a level 3 tuner and 1 level 1 non-tuner. That's all the material you need to make the Fabled Unicorn. This leaves you with 3 cards in hand, which could potentially be some problems for your opponent if they don't play their cards right, but you also have Stairway's activated effect online, as well as Kushano's in grave. So if those other 3 cards in your hand have graveyard triggers, you have plenty of ways to get those online now. Enjoy! Okay, so that's all the Fabled cards, but what do we do with them? Well, to get the highest ceiling possible, we're gonna want to prioritize spitting out as much material as possible so we can leverage the strongest synchros this game has to offer. We're not interested in the grind game, we're only interested in gas to get us into an undefeatable position turn 1. So all our choices should be made in an attempt to maximize our summoning power. So what can we play to help them out? If we're going second and are in need of a Hail Mary to close out the game, I'd recommend making Manadome Prime Heart. Requiring light materials isn't a problem considering we're all lights, and with all the tuners we can turbo out, we can potentially give this a ton of attacks. You might even want to play a second field spell in Primal Planet Calorium, since it'll get you a Manadome tuner, helping to give Prime Heart not only its targeting protection, but also a nice stat buff as well. Besides, once you've used up a Fabled Realm for the turn, it's not doing much more for you. And while we're on the topic of field spells, Dragon Ravine is actually really funny here. It broadens our synchro capabilities by sending Destrudo from deck to grave, and look, Dragon Ravine even comes with a discard. How thoughtful of it. This can be combined with any of our level 6 non-tuners to make Ancient Fairy Dragon, which can then turn Ravine into either of our other 2 field spells, and if it's your first turn, even get another monster out of your hand to help extend your combos. Beckoning Light is an interesting card that helps enable your plays and revitalize your resources all at once. You'll have to be careful though to keep all the discarded cards in the grave while resolving this effect, because they really need to stay in the grave for their activated effects to work on a new chain, so don't accidentally add them back to your hand if you want the value. And this also sets up other effects that you might want to use later, like Cruz and Cerberus. Like with Dark World, Muckraker is a pretty nifty link monster in case you need some recovery. The discard will enable your Fabled effects, and it gets you your big bosses from the grave. Remember, Wraith triggers on Special Summon, not Synchro Summon, so you can make another run at that effect if you please. We also can't overlook Dangers, not only because they have the discarding synergy with Fabled, but as dark monsters, they make for excellent material to summon Chaos Angel. Not only does this give us access to a targeted banish, it also keeps our synchros safe from our opponent's activated monster effects, as well as granting all of our monsters battle destruction immunity, meaning even the tiniest of Fableds don't have to worry about the battle phase. As for a silly tech pick, Bestials. Not just for their ability to disrupt the grave, they also pair with Solkius to make those sweet rank 6s. That new Evolzar monster might not give us as much mileage since we're not playing any dinosaurs or reptiles, but it is still an onboard negate. Wallow, founder of the Drudge Dragons, is also a very nifty monster to add to our roster, because not only is it grave disruption, it can also take some of your opponent's best cards. And that's all I have to say about Fabled. This deck is certainly a skill testing one, not only asking you to find how best to make a board with the cards you have, but also anticipating how your play sequences will have to go based on the cards you draw from Raiden's combos. The ability to leverage some of the best synchro monsters ever printed shouldn't be understated, but it's not for the faint of heart, and the unprepared will surely face damnation. But if hell is full of cute puppies and kitties, then they can't be all bad. But now, I want to hear what you all have to say. Do Fabled live up to the legend, or are they still as flat as the day they were crushed by a giant space dino? And which one is your favorite? Me? I'm on Team Andraith with this one. They seem like they're really enjoying themselves. Let me know in the comments, and while you're down there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so we can hit that 53k April goal, and share this video with someone you know who loves Yu-Gi-Oh! It really does a lot to help me out. Today's episode was brought to you in part by Dragon Shield. When you want to protect your cards with the power of dragon scales, get some sweet lore for them, and support the channel, check out my link in the description to get started. This episode was also brought to you by my lovely patrons, including this month's illustrious Quasar Commander Green Knight, Nebula Navigator's 3rd Dynasty, Ada Basilisk, Adam Zajdel, Andrew Newman, Avi Chali, Kane Senpai, Cameron Berg, Chibi Gohan, Colin Todd, Danny Bound, Eric, Frankie, Genesis Yu-Gi-Oh, Gloomba 331, Great Big Pillock, Hair Bear, Harry the Ominous Benefactor, Howling Zangetsu, Iskander 711, Jester Designs, John Manji, Jordan, Julius Sneezer, Mana Charge, Marluxia Zagirl, Nathan Vig, Panther J, Rebel King Lucifer, RJ the Jank Monarch, Ruxith Sarani, Sammy Haim, Sir Knight JCB, Sophie, apparently, the Fresh Prince of Conair, the Charizard Flame, the Wizard Moose and Xander Wolfensberger, Cosmic Crusaders Ariel Kersey, Bear Sharktopus Studios, Beluga Masta, Chaz Ghost, Chips Cooney, Chris Kessler, Corbinisms, Drachenwald, Emony, Eva Padilla, Give Cruel the Belt, you dumb bastards, Herbal D, Inblink, Kale the Dragon, Carp, King Scarlet Yu-Gi-Oh, Lord Whoop-de-Doo, Manga Pages, Marion James E. Picata, Matt Simmons, Michael Shimabukuro, Nitromo, Shizuka Nijimura, Shooting Star 3300, Star-Lord 777, Stephen Williamson, The Legendary Raven, Tucker Ordorn and Zaldreka, as well as the wonderful Starlight Explorers you see on screen now. If you'd like to help me in my journey to cover all of Yu-Gi-Oh's archetypes, get your custom cards reviewed by me, and be a part of these credits, make sure you check out the link to my Patreon down below, as well as clicking the join button for my YouTube membership. And if you'd like to see how the Fabled lied and cheated their way to world domination, check out this playlist where you can learn the living lore of the Duel Terminal. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.